Okay, it couldn't be any more obvious. This is the finish up here for the regular season, and we've got to get this game done. We've got to get what we need to get done here to have a chance to keep rolling. It ain't about really what's down the road. It's this game right now, right this time, and we've got to do some things better than we did. And we've had some times where we've been okay, but we got to get better. And so you wonder, how can you get better in a week? Well, watch. We're going to do that, and we're going to change a little bit of how this thing happened in last week, and I'm anxious to see it come together. So it's always on this day is about back to basics and the fundamentals and doing the little things right. And so we got to capture this day and make sure it's a good one for us.
All righty then. I'm having some mouse pointer problems. That's why we're getting the blips and the bloops and the blops and the bloopity bloops, or whatever those are called. I forget who made that reference. Winslet? Whatever. The bleeps and the bloops. Anyways, welcome to First Kick Seahawks. We try to prepare ourselves for the first kick of everything, not just the first kick of the game or the first kick of the play or anything like that, but maybe it can teach us to be a little calm and embrace chaos. Be ready for chaos, because you might think the things are going to go your way, and then you lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mason Rudolph. And here you are. I want to show you. Oh, I want to show you Pete Carroll's face right now. My goodness. My goodness. I'm sharing my screen. Look at this man's face. Just look at that face. That is a stressed out man facing the media. Let's hear this again, why don't we? I want to highlight this.
The road, it's this game right now, right this time. And we've got to do some things better than we did. And we've had some times where we've been okay, but we got to get better. And so you wonder, how can you get better in a week? Well, watch. We're going to do that.
Ooh. Well, watch. Attitude. See how I keep clicking random shit? My mouse is having issues. Fucking attitude. Well, watch. Pete's got something to prove. He's got a bone to pick with somebody in this Seahawks locker room. It sounds like it's a fundamentals problem. We'll definitely get to that. But what have I been preaching all goddamn year? We have plenty of talent. We just need to play good fundamental football. And then we'll probably be okay. We can remain competitive if that happens. But it's the games where we can't even be competitive because we can't even do the basics, which is tackling. That's when we lose. Pete Carroll getting a little feisty as we go into Week 18 against the Arizona Cardinals, who are also a little feisty. New GM, new coach, quarterback has come in later in the season, so he's technically rested. I think he's played just maybe like a handful of games, maybe 6 or 7. He's in the flow of things. Just beat the Eagles, who, that was our old defensive mastermind, working with Clint Hurtt to make the defense that we're currently playing with. And so I want to get into this, right? Like, what are we in for? So let's think about what Pete Carroll has to say just a little bit more. And we're not going to do the whole presser, but it's important.
Change a little bit. You wonder, how can you get better in a week? Well, watch. We're going to do that, and we're going to change a little bit of how this thing happened in last week, and I'm anxious to see it come together. So
we're going to change a little bit, and he's anxious to see how it works. What is he going to change? Because we've been preaching fundamentals all year. And it wasn't until we get rocked by the Steelers, after running game got rocked by the Titans, after we got rocked twice by the 49ers, and you're like, oh, okay, now I understand. I think we need to make some changes. I mean, we've made changes along the way, sure. We've sat Jamal Adams because he's not healthy. No, we benched Jamal Adams. Devin Witherspoon's come back, but of course Jordan Brooks got hurt. But we were still having tackling problems. The defensive line is healthy. So they're going to make some adjustments. What adjustments is he going to make in week 18 of the NFL season in hopes to go to the playoffs? Well, he'll even note later, like Connor, the Arizona Cardinals running back, he leads the league in yards after contact. What just happened? We just ran up against running backs who we missed 5 tackles on one run. They ran all over us. And now we're going to go up against the Yak King of 2023. What? So luckily for us, the Steelers have like a long-term heritage of explosives, and they have an offensive line that's designed to set up explosives, and the Cardinals right now are in not just a rebuild team. They just got ripped down and rebuilt, but they got some attitude. And Kyler Murray's in there, and he's got some legs. And we haven't been doing well against mobile quarterbacks either, except Jalen Hurts, who had the flu and was airbussed to us so that he wouldn't be around the rest of his team. So I'm not sure what he wants other than what we're supposed to be doing all year, which is maintain your gap discipline, get in there and hit your gaps and wrap up and make sure that he doesn't drag you down and then get out of the drag. It could be the way that they decide to line up on the defensive front. They know that Bobby is their best tackler. He's actually second in the NFL league in total tackles, which is crazy when you think about it. So there might be something to, we got these linebackers, they can't cover, and there's this running attack. We're going to set up our defensive line so that we're going to set up these one gap blocks, or maybe we'll switch to 2 back blocks. So we'll try to power and then set up these big passing lanes so we can get Bobby directly at it. Or maybe that's what they've been doing all year. To be honest, I haven't been watching. That's a question for Matty F. Brown in Seattle Overload, because he's been looking at stuff like that. But if they decide to make that type of switch where, yeah, we're going to overpower their guards, or we're going to start singling up on each gap and create these hash marks, have Bobby read and then attack, or whatever they decide to do, why did it take till week 18 while teams have been kicking your ass to make that decision? If he said blah, 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 how can you get better in a week? Watch. He clearly means something, right? Did Clint Hurtt get fucking yelled at? Like, dude, you were the defensive lineman coach. You were the guy who recommended all these Vic Fangio hires and to bring in this system and built this system. Why can't you stop the run? This was supposed to be your thing. You're a defensive line coach. So maybe that's just the adjustment we need to fix the run. We line up in a different way. And we've seen this on the offensive line, where when you just attack the gaps differently with your running back and such, it can have a complete obstruction of what opposing defenses want to do. So if a team wants to run all over us, let's just change our front. That's probably what Pete Carroll has in mind. So we'll look forward to that. But on this note, Pete Carroll is the head coach, but he's also the executive. And part of his responsibility as the executive is to scout good coaches. And instead, what Pete Carroll has routinely done is hired in-house, which is, on one hand, good. Like, yeah, you're giving your guys opportunities. On the other hand, why aren't you able to identify talent outside the organization? It's not like this is the first year we've been bad against a part of, the run game or the passing game or both. We've been having problems since at least 2019. And then we bring in a Jadeveon Clowney or something, and now he's doing amazing with the Ravens. Hell, Clowney didn't even want to stay with the Seahawks. And so, what coaches could you, what could coaches actually bring to this program instead of a rookie defensive line coach that's now the defensive coordinator? I know this is his second year, but he can't even teach our guys how to tackle. He can't even be we're going to have fundamental tackling right at the beginning of the season. We get it right for a couple weeks in the middle of the season, and then we fall apart at the end of the season. What's he doing as a defensive coach? And why did Pete Carroll decide to choose this guy? Is it because he liked him? He does appear to be likable, that Clint Hurtt. But even Sean Desai goes to the Eagles. They decided to bench him for Matt Patricia. Gus Bradley, not a Pete Carroll guy, gets let go because he gets an opportunity for the Jaguars. Pete Carroll always talks about there's always going to be a place for you in Seattle. To players. I don't think he means coaches. Because Gus Bradley would be somebody I'd be maybe bring him back. Because every other defense he's touched has been good. When he leaves, their defenses go to crap. Maybe try to find somebody else's Dan Quinn, who's probably in the conversation among Jody Allen and company. Are we going to bring Dan Quinn in to be a replacement head coach? But then the question is, who's going to be the executive of the Seahawks? I keep saying I'd like to see John Snyder have that attempt. But, maybe you still want to see a coach guy in that position. It's a unique position for an organization. So, I want to talk about our heritage as the Seahawks, Pete Carroll's heritage, and then, of course, we're going to talk about the Cardinals and the Pottsville Maroons. Who are the Pottsville Maroons, you might say? Well, that's the championship team from 1925. Whom the Arizona Cardinals claimed their trophy from. Cardinals actually do have a championship. It just happens to belong to the Pottsville Maroons. And then they claim that they're the Pottsville Maroons, when technically that's not accurate either. But anyways, we'll get to that. Pete Carroll always competes. And I think one of the best eras of Pete Carroll was when he was competing with himself. fix this. When he was competing with himself, he was trying to challenge his mindset. And that's important for a lot of reasons, right? Every once in a while, you need to take a step back and look at yourself. And he talks about all the time, when I'm stepping back from my time with the Patriots and the Jets and going to USC, I decided to completely rewrite the way I do things. And he did. It was very successful for him. And I think that process he has is sound, is really good. ... What's going on with everyone around him? He's a teacher, right? And he invokes the best out of people. And not only does he do that, he makes people want to be the best that they can be. Sometimes it makes them a little ornery. Maybe Pete Carroll's a little ornery too. Some people say that. But it still infuels people to go out there and perform their best, because it's not necessarily about Pete Carroll being like, you need to perform better. It's, bro, you got this. We know you can do better. I've seen it. Don't you want to do better? Right? And they feel that because they want to do better. And now they have somebody who's like, dude, this dude's trying to make me better. And some people super buy into that. Some people don't. And in camp, what he does, I don't know if he's changed it in recent years, but when I've gone to training camps and when I've heard him talk about training camps and the way he wants to set up training camps, he spends his time putting people in situations that are special. The special moments of football. And my words, not his. He spends a lot of time on explosives. Russell Wilson would be out there just chucking deep bombs all day. Nothing down the middle. Not reading anything crazy. Just 4 verticals all day against the Legion of Boom, so that they could remember we need to be special at stopping explosives down the field. And they instilled this in their brain. They kept it simple. And right now it seems like our specialty is, well, we're going to blitz. And even then they would spend time in the camp. Oh, where is it? It's behind me. Cliff Averill and company, right? Ball's here. We're going to hit you behind the arm and attack the arm instead of trying to sack the quarterback. While sacking the quarterback, there's a specific way to do it where you get your arm wrapped around the arm, which causes him to fumble, and you bring him down. And if you don't bring him down, at least your fingertip can probably hit it. And so they would practice that. Exclusively that. But they wouldn't necessarily be like, okay, we're going to focus on, you guys are going to come up here and then hit the gap and tackle. You guys are going to come up here, hit the gap and tackle. They had their hawk tackling, right, which he brought to the league, and he talked a lot about it. And that was because he wanted to train physicality. Maybe he needs to start teaching that again. But ultimately, he talks about fundamentals during the season, after it becomes a problem, because we started off so poor with fundamentals, and then look out for the Seahawks at the end of the season, which I can understand the logic. If you make it so you're really good at deflecting explosive plays and getting to creating explosive plays, and then we have a bunch of good players, they'll figure it out. They've played football before. And then midway through the season, now that they figured out the basics again of how to tackle and how to block and how to engage in pursuit, because they're back on the bike and on the horse and riding, and now they're familiar, We spent all this time in training camp teaching them how to make special plays on the field. Exclusively just explosive plays, period. That's it. And they believe that they can do it because I've instilled all this confidence in them. And then during the year, just do the fundamentals and the rest will come to you. Remember, turnovers and explosives come in bunches. You just got to get the fundamentals right. And he instills this idea in their heads, and then they got to just go in there and play the fundamentals right, which is kind of like what we've been trying to get them to do all year, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. And I think maybe one more. So you spend so much time not focused on the fundamentals of hitting and tackling during training camp that during the normal season, you're ill-prepared and you spend all of your valuable time, instead of preparing for your opponents and growing, you spend it on getting your team right on basic fundamentals. Why might that be beneficial? Well, it's notorious that NFL teams that start off well can fall apart in the second half because their fundamentals start to get sloppy and stuff. It's a long season and they're tired, and it could be that during the season they're getting figured out and they're not having the same spectacular plays they did before because they were taking advantage of teams that weren't disciplined as they were. But now those teams are disciplined again, and it's more even footing. So why not just enter undisciplined and chaotic, but you're capable of crazy shit, and then midway through the season, once you are fundamentally sound, on top of that, now you're capable of crazy shit, and no one else in the league practiced that. Therefore, Russell Wilson's going to be doing spinny and loop-de-loops and stuff and throwing moon balls, and the Legion of Boom is going to be darting here and there and hitting a specific way because we've got to teach Cam Chancellor how to tackle correctly, or else we're going to get flags. So here's how you hawk tackle. What fundamentals are you teaching the team right now other than we got to blitz from over here, we got to blitz from over here, we got to go over here, and then I'm going to teach the kick step technique that I've been teaching for a decade now, so there's tape on how to beat it. But are you teaching tackling fundamentals? According to KJ, that's kind of the player's responsibility. He talks about OTAs, and actually I vibe with this. I vibe with this really hard. OTAs are organized team activities. They're typically for free agents that they're scouting out, or they're for the brand new drafted players who have actually signed their contracts. So it's like, why haven't you signed your contract before OTAs? You're trying to get this deal done before training camp. As a rookie that just got drafted, get this shit done before OTAs. Well, maybe they want some rest time since it was a long college season, so they're waiting. But you need OTAs because it teaches you communication with the players around you, and it gives you an opportunity to work hands-on, one-on-one with the coaches, where the entire purpose is fundamentals. And what has our team lacked on? Fundamentals. When did that go away? Well, in two folds. One, when the Legion of Boom stopped spending so much time together in the offseason because Jeremy Lane's gone, Byron Maxwell's gone, Mike Morgan. I'm trying to remember Josh Johnson. Was it Josh Johnson? Was that our backup strong safety? Earl Thomas. All the others. They would be like, yeah, we're going to this beach for like a mid-off-season workout and get together after we've spent time with our families. We're going to bring the families along too so they can have a vacation. And we're going to run barefoot on the beach playing football and communicating and stuff. So when you're running on the beach, you're working your legs and stuff and strengthening them in ways that grass and stuff can't possibly help you. It's also saving you from injury because it's working muscles that you can't, normally work out whatsoever. It makes you explosive because you need to run through sand that's giving way under your feet, which helps with tackling and things like that, and accelerating, which people like Richard Sherman would need in order to, kick off with people because he's not the fastest guy. But most importantly, pursuit angles. You spend time knowing when I go here, he goes there. When you go there, I go there. You can get ready and in position and keep your mind on the game. Don't get rusty during your summer break. Do you enjoy playing football or not? And do you enjoy playing football with the guys around you or not? Even Russell Wilson, he had his own little field, which was, I think he was inspired by the Legion of Boom, except he didn't do it on sand. He did it on a nice grass field, tossing these balls to Baldwin and Lockett and DK for a little bit there. And then all these other unknown people. And then people would be like, oh my God, look at the tape of him throwing to John Ursua. I mean, yeah, he's throwing to flat grass. He probably should have been throwing in sand. He might have built up his strength a bit and helped with communication and stuff and help him with routes that aren't perfect. Help him with timing. OTAs. Get your fundamentals right. And when you look at the Rams with Sean McVay, he has yet to lose a week 1 game except for the 1 week after he won the Super Bowl. And everything went to shit for his roster on injuries. But he always wins week 1. And he always starts off hot. And the question is why? Well, he teaches good fundamental football. There's nothing crazy they're doing. Sure, they're doing like the veers and the outside handoffs and stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. On defense, and as far as blocking goes, they do good fundamental football. The game is about tackling and hitting. If you can't even do that, it doesn't matter how far you can throw the ball or how hard you can break on a pass. It doesn't matter how good Woolen is in pass coverage if he's going to be stiff-armed out of his fucking brains. Right? You got to be able to match up to what's in front of you physically in a game that's physical. And so I'm excited. What did Pete Carroll mean by just watch? Just watch. Well, you might want to be concerned about that. For 3 reasons. 1, as we discussed, Connor, the halfback of this Cardinals team, is the Yak King of 2023. Yards after contact. And Kyler Murray has got them legs. He looks like a Sonic the Hedgehog character back there. And he'll get open. And he'll definitely run around. He's a different type of running back, a halfback. See what I did there? He's a different type of quarterback than we faced all year. 2, the Seahawks are cursed in Arizona and playing Arizona. Do I need to get into it? Well, I guess we'll get into it. Super Bowl 49. We all know about the last play of that game. It's not the last play, but it basically was. Jermaine Kearse didn't break the block of Brandon Browner to get in the way of Butler, who then broke in and hit the hands of Ricardo Lockett. You go hands to hands, and what do you get? Good chance to make a play on the ball and an interception. Yeah, Jermaine Kearse just got into the right spot. You'd be fine, but also, why are you having Jermaine Kearse try to out-physical Brandon fucking Browner? Cursed. But also, all the injuries in Arizona. Isn't that where Earl went down and flipped us off? Maybe not. Definitely where Averill went down and injured his neck and had to retire. Cam Chancellor went down, injured his neck, and had to retire. Richard Sherman went down, tore his Achilles, and we had to move on from him. And it kind of ended his career in the long run. Bunch of other terrible things happened there. There was the game where we were midway through it with Russell Wilson, and we found out midway through that we weren't making the playoffs. And that's something I want to bring up. In this game, if we had beat the Steelers, it's a pretty good chance we make the seventh seed. But we would also have needed to beat the Cardinals to kind of secure that. Now we need to beat the Cardinals, and I'm not going to bring up, the playoff odds calculator. But we have to beat the Cardinals. Have to. If we want to make the playoffs. And even then, we might not make it in. I believe it's if the Saints win, and then one other team wins. I don't remember which it is. We don't make it in even if the Cardinals lose to us. And the Cardinals definitely would want to play spoilers. It's not going to affect their draft status right now. Bears have the first overall pick. Cardinals, I think they have their pick secured. I don't know what pick that is. It's just from what I've been hearing from the Locked On Cardinals guy on Twitter. I don't remember his name. Shout out to him, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Chaney? Something like that. He's great. They could want to play spoilers. And if you remember last year, Lions came in and played spoilers against the Packers. And this team is scrappy. And, if you think that they were easy to beat last time, well, first of all, we were playing Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut, I believe some people like to call him, who then got traded to the Vikings. There's a story of, I didn't even know the playbook, and then I won. It's football. It was probably your coach and the team around you that made that good. And then as we learned, as he got benched later, the team just made him look good. There wasn't any tape on him. They just really, really did the best they could in a situation, and Josh Dobbs turned it on. He did not play well against us. But you know who did play well against us? Well, it's Connor. Where is his stat? Where is his stat? Did Connor not play against us? He didn't. We played Amari DeMercado. He had 13 rushes for 58 yards. And then Ronald Moore had 4 rushes for 24 yards. But Joshua Dobbs, on top of that, had 7 attempts rushing for 43 and a touchdown, a long of 25. Amari had a long of 18. Ronald Moore a long of 15. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? This idea of big explosive runs being on our team. And Kyler Murray is a better runner than Josh Dobbs. And Connor is a better runner than Amari, who is just playing backup And sure, we didn't have Williams at the time, but we had Nwosu, pretty sure. So just something to be concerned about as you clench your butt cheeks. Our curse of Arizona. But you need to remember something. The Cardinals are also cursed. Before we move on to that, I want to cover Kyler Murray really quick. He showed up. Let me actually. Oh, whatever. He showed up 7 weeks ago. So I was right. It was 7 weeks. He played against Atlanta. And in this game, Trey McBride, their tight end, had a breakout game. 9 targets, 8 receptions, 131 yards. No touchdowns. He only has 2 touchdowns on the year. His previous breakout game, and I'm anything above 75 yards, okay, was against Baltimore, which was 2 weeks before, where he had 14 targets, 10 receptions, and 95 yards, and a touchdown. And we've seen how Baltimore is. He was probably like their check down king, but also he was averaging 9.5 yards per reception. Chain mover. He's that dude. But ever since Kyler Murray, his targets have been in that 9+ range. Atlanta, 9 targets, 8 receptions. Houston, 7 targets, 5 receptions. LA Rams, 9 targets, 7 receptions. Pittsburgh Steelers, 9 targets, 8 receptions. Santa Clara 49ers, 11 targets, 10 receptions. Chicago Bears, 8 targets, 6 receptions. Philadelphia Eagles, 7 targets, 6 receptions. He had 1 touchdown, which was the other touchdown of his season against Pittsburgh. But all in all, he's averaging a ton of yards per carry, like about a first down every time he gets the ball in his hands. Except for games like Chicago where he just gets shut down. Like he was targeted 8 times for 6 yards but got 31 yards. But San Francisco, that 11 targets, 10 receptions, 101 yards. If we don't stop Trey McBride and their running game and Kyler Murray running the ball, it's going to be a long day against the Cardinals. And I hope you guys are ready for that. Kyler Murray, of course, is just doing Kyler Murray things. I'm going to do a turnover Thursday tomorrow. But in his 7 games this year, he has 9 touchdowns, passing, and 5 interceptions. So not the best ratio, but he has 3 rushing touchdowns. So 12 total touchdowns on the season to his 5 interceptions. He's also fumbling like a lot. Like a lot. Like the last 4 games, he's fumbled 6 times a lot. 7 the entire season. So he carries, when he's running, he carries the ball like this, loose. And so just be prepared. He might fumble. And we'll talk about that again tomorrow. Let's go ahead and talk about something I like talking about. The fact that the Arizona Cardinals are cursed. They're frauds. They're complete frauds. I have a clip that I'll start with. I think this is it.
The Maroons were kicked out of the NFL. and the 1925 title eventually went to the Cardinals.
The Cardinals never laid claim to it until the Bidwell family bought them in 1933. And it was only then that they stepped in and said, oh, we'll take this championship, even though we didn't earn it.
Boom. Yeah, we'll go ahead and just take this championship, even though we didn't earn it. Imagine if the Oklahoma Thunder or whatever were like, yeah, we're going to take credit for all the records that the Supersonics had in Seattle. I think they tried to. Maybe they still do. It's fucked up. It's not even your city. It's not even the same franchise. It's not even the same ownership. It's nothing. So I want to talk about Pottsville and the Cardinals and the history. And this goes back to 1925. And what is this, Bob Costa? I'll let him start it. This is important. I talk about heritage all the time. It's about the heritage of the Cardinals curse and why I think that curse rubbed off on us.
And though the team took some steps forward this year, there really wasn't much hope that the hometown club would be playing in this Sunday's game. The Cardinals, in fact, haven't won an NFL championship since 1947, when they were the Chicago Cardinals. Since then, the Redbirds have migrated twice, first to St. Louis and then here to Arizona. But success has eluded.
And I think about that all the time, too. Like, you have, like, the LA Rams, and then you have, like, the St. Louis Rams. And the LA Rams then go back, the St. Louis Rams then go back to LA and win a Super Bowl. So that's the LA's Super Bowl, right? Not St. Louis's Super Bowl. And then now you have Oakland. Sorry, you have the Raiders. See, I just think of them as like a specific way. You have the Raiders, who won championships, but they were also LA, Oakland, and now they're in Vegas. So does Vegas take claim of all that? Why did they maintain the Raiders title if they were going to Vegas, which isn't even in the same state? Right? It's in the, like, you have to go to an entirely different state and cross the mountains to reach this place. So is it fair to keep this franchise title? I don't like it.
The franchise in each location. While bad ownership is often blamed, there's also another peculiar possibility. The possibility of a curse brought on by the 1925 NFL title that the Cardinals claim as their own. A title that fans of another long-forgotten team still insist belongs to them. Nestled in the hills of central Pennsylvania is a tiny coal mining town.
Also, if you're interested in watching this, I have a link to the video in the description below. Also, please like and subscribe to my channel. But also, this video is provided to us by Michael Moran. Like and subscribe to his channel. Or at least like and then say thank you in the comments.
Home to Yingling Brewery, but otherwise a speck on the map compared to the great metropolises of the NFL. According to residents here, though, it's the scene of the greatest miscarriage of justice in the league's history. A travesty that has never been righted, and that to this day haunts two communities, one of them thousands of miles away, the other right here in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. To fully understand, you have to go back to the 1920s. America's big cities were roaring and glamorous, while dusty coal towns like Pottsville were driving the country's engine with backbreaking, dirty, thankless work.
They were the ones that provided the raw materials for probably the greatest industrial revolution in the history of the world. And they did it sort of one fistful of coal at a time.
Football provided a much-needed diversion. The town's team wasn't exactly the Chicago Bears or the New York Giants. In fact, the Pottsville Maroons played in the...
And again, this is why heritage is so important, because it matters a lot to communities where this is kind of like their culture. This is what they have, right? This is what they get up and excited for. This is what they like were empowered by in some ways, or this is what put them on the map. And now you're just going to take that away from them?
Anthracite Coal League. That is until they joined the NFL
not just take it away from
in
them,
1925.
but give it to someone else afterwards? It's fucked up.
Football provided a much-needed diversion. The town's team wasn't exactly the Chicago Bears or the New York Giants. In fact, the Pottsville Maroons played in the Anthracite Coal League. That is until they joined the NFL in 1925.
Back then, all you needed was a $500 franchise fee, and if the NFL agreed, you could get in.
The team's roster was a mix.
Like, that's cheaper than starting a team in the XFL. Like, people talk a bit about it, but I don't know what the going rate was because of inflation, but surely that must have been a far cheaper rate than what it would be to start a USFL team or an arena team or something crazy cheap, right?
Mix of minors and young college grads. Former Lafayette College quarterback Jack Ernst. Charlie Berry, a wide receiver who said his ability to hold onto the ball could be traced back to his days delivering slippery milk bottles.
Okay, I love this part. His ability to hold on to the ball can be attributed back to his days of catching and holding slippery milk bottles. Does that remind you of anything? Well, Seahawks fans will immediately think, oh yeah, we throw the fish in Pike Place Market, and then they have to catch it a certain way, otherwise it slips out, right? You catch it with your fingertips so it doesn't slip out. It's one way. But also, this is like Jerry Rice. I bring him up all the time. How his dad was a mason who would make walls and whatnot. And so he would help his dad, and his dad would toss him bricks, and he would catch them with his bare hands. You had to catch them a certain way, so A, they didn't cut up your hands, and B, so that they didn't land on the ground and break. So, you know, he got rougher hands, but also he learned how to hold things a very specific way. So this was a neat fact, I thought.
Ability to hold onto the ball could be traced back to his days delivering slippery milk bottles. And the heart of the team, the running back known simply as Push 'em Up Tony.
Tony Latone was forced into the mines at 11 and spent 8 years underground. One of his...
Okay, I love this story. It's fucked up, but it says a lot about the time. And also, we also talk all the time like, man, athletes back then wouldn't be able to stand up to athletes today. I don't think you understand what kids back then grew up with. Well, kids today like have certain experiences and stuff, and I mean, sure, but a lot of these kids were like farmers and coal miners who were miners. MINORS. So listen to this guy's story. He started mining at 11, and it helped develop him into a football player. And watch what he does.
Could be traced back to his days delivering slippery milk bottles. And the heart of the team, the running back known simply as Push 'em Up Tony.
Tony Latone was forced into the mines at 11 and spent 8 years underground. One of his last jobs that he did was pushing 2-ton coal carts up to the railroad tracks. That perfectly mimicked the sort of muscle groups and the activity of running backs.
When he hit the line and didn't go through, he'd go back 10 yards and get another flying start and plunge through.
The team's coach was Dick Rauch, a Penn State grad.
Right? So he'd push the carts to activate all the leg muscles. And so his heritage of how he grew up and the way that he developed physically helped him. I mean, it's cool just to see who these guys were.
Whose main expertise was bird watching.
When he first came to town, they said, how can a...
Hold on.
The team's coach was Dick Rauch, a Penn State grad, whose main expertise was bird watching.
Oh, you like
when
women,
he first
huh?
came to town, they said, how can a bird watcher coach this team? but I think the town gravitated to him as he started winning games.
Coach Dick Rauch's idea was, these guys are going to become part of our community. They're going to live here every day. We're going to practice every day. And this was revolutionary at the time.
All of Pottsville was behind the Maroons. And in their first NFL season, they weren't just good, they were great. The Maroons outscored their opponents by an average of over 20 points. And
Also, note that they were talking about how the coach, weird, liked birds. And that his idea was, we want this team to be part of the community. And not only do we want them to be a part of the community, we want the community to be actively involved with the team. And we want them around the team. And we want the team to be around the community. And if you think about it as a bird watcher, he wanted a flock experience. And the energies of the flock build up into each other. Is a cool idea.
And by early December, they were 9-2. The league championship would be determined by winning percentage, and the Maroons and the Chicago Cardinals were neck and neck.
The Cardinals said, well, let's have these sort of, cold cracker hillbillies come over to Comiskey Park. We'll beat them up, and then it will be the unanimous choice for NFL champion.
Well, Pottsville just ran wild out there.
The Maroons beat the Cardinals 21-7, earning what they thought was the...
Yeah. The Maroons beat the Cardinals in a championship and take the title 21-7. This is so important to keep in mind. The Maroons, the Pottsville Maroons, beat the Cardinals. Got to remember that as we keep going forward.
Championship, and they returned to a hero's welcome at the Pottsville train station.
They're waiting for the train, and when they heard the whistle blow and the old locomotive away down the line, they cheered. The roar was something, I'm telling you, it was fabulous.
I mean, imagine a little town today like Pottsville. They were world champions.
Just 6 days
1925.
later, the Maroons challenged mighty Notre Dame. Back then, the NFL was considered...
Okay, so you win the Super Bowl, which at this time there's no Super Bowl, right? But you basically win the Super Bowl. It's like an 8-game season, but you have a ton of preseason games, so whatever. But now you're at your peak, and Notre Dame says, we want to challenge you. Wait, this fucking college team, Notre Dame, wants to challenge the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, who just beat the Eagles? The fuck, right? That's basically what just happened here. Is Pottsville beats the Cardinals, and then they do an exhibition match the week later against the best team in college football, which at the time was considered better than professional football by far. Maybe it was youth, maybe it was like funding. I'm not quite sure, right? But at the time, that's what it was. And he'll get more into it, but they had their 4 horsemen on defense. I believe it was on defense for Notre Dame. They were just demolishing college teams, and at the time I believe they were considered one of, if not the best college teams of all time. And so now they're going up against this Pottsville team, which comes off of their first championship, basically a brand new team, bunch of young guys too. What's going to happen?
Second rate to the college game and the famed mighty...
Okay, here it is.
Just 6 days later, the Maroons challenged mighty Notre Dame. Back then, the NFL was considered second rate to the college game, and the famed 4 horsemen confidently rode into Philadelphia's Shibe Park.
They're on horses.
Yet after a late field goal, the next day's headlines proclaimed the unthinkable. The Maroons' 9-7 victory would have far-reaching effects. It was
the Maroons beat them 9-7. It was a late game field goal. They were down 6-7 against this college team. The right? And so they were lauding it as like, oh yeah, The NFL is so much better than these college teams. Look at this. But you won 9-7 at the last minute by kicking a field goal. I don't know, dude.
The Maroons defeating Notre Dame and the famed Four Horsemen that really made the nation stand up and accept the NFL and pro football for what it was.
They beat the greatest football team ever assembled at a time when people thought the NFL was a joke, and the NFL paid them back by destroying the Maroons.
It would be like in today's, I'm using Notre Dame as a poor example. It'd be like an XFL team like the DC Defenders taking on Alabama. DC Defenders, I think they lost in the championship. I don't remember the team that beat them, so I'm using the DC Defenders. The DC Defenders were like the best defense in the XFL last year. And it would be them like, yeah, we just won a championship. It didn't happen. I'm just going with the story. We just won a championship. Now we're going to go up and play Alabama. I'm choosing Alabama just because I don't watch college football right now, so I don't know who the best college team is. We're going up against Georgia. I don't know. We're going up against one of those big heavyweight teams that's always really fucking good. And then the XFL beats that team, Alabama or whatever, 9-7, like barely. And they're like, holy shit. Would you start to take the XFL seriously if that happened? Like, this team did just beat Alabama. This team did just beat USC, or I don't know how high USC is. You get the idea, right? Or would it be more convincing if it was like this team beat the Kansas City Chiefs and it was the other way around? Because that's what it was, oh, college was the respectful one. College was the NFL today, where the NFL was the XFL of today. So I'm not sure has, how they would fare if the XFL was to try to do an exhibition game the same way.
Joke, and the NFL paid him back by destroying the Maroons.
What should have been the Maroons' best moment became its most controversial. Their Philadelphia rivals, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, complained to the league that Pottsville violated a little-known territory rule by playing the Notre Dame game in Philadelphia. NFL President Joe Carr's decision was swift and harsh. The Maroons were kicked out of the NFL.
Yeah.
And the 1925 title eventually went to the Cardinals.
The Cardinals never laid claim to it until the Bidwell family bought them in 1933. And it was only then that they stepped in and said, oh, we'll take this championship, even though we didn't earn it.
Do you understand why this is so upsetting now? The idea of, well, the Seattle Seahawks decide to play an exhibition game, and we play it in Santa Maria. I don't know. We play it in San Diego, or we play it somewhere in California, and we have permission to play an exhibition game. Apparently, there's a league rule that allows us to play an exhibition game. So the problem isn't that we're playing a college team for an exhibition game. The problem is that we're playing it into a territory where the 49ers advertise, or where the Chargers advertise, or where the Rams advertise, or where the Raiders advertise. And that's taking away their money because you're stealing their advertising and their attention for that area. So then what they decide is they tell Jody Allen, your team is kicked out of the league. And not only that, your Super Bowl is now no longer yours. And they're like, what do we do? Well, the Broncos step in and say, well, we'll take that Super Bowl. So even though we beat the pants off of the Broncos, they then get awarded a Super Bowl. And that's what happened to this Cardinals this Pottsville Maroons team, and that's what the Cardinals did to them, with the help of the Eagles, who were bitching about territorial rights and advertising, basically.
Said, oh, we'll take this championship, even though we didn't earn it.
Over 70 years later, the residents of Pottsville haven't forgotten. They say the fight to reclaim what is theirs will continue. Meanwhile, the Maroons' presence is felt all around town. A picture of the 1925 team hangs on the high school bulletin board. A trophy made of, what else? Coal sits in the center of town. And like any good NFL city, there's a bar for the team. The locals' choice on tap? Stolen Championship Ale.
I was born and raised and lived all my life in this region. I know what kind of people, when they feel like an injustice has been done, the fight will continue until it's been righted.
Yeah, the 1925 championship belongs to Pottsville because they won it fair and square on the field of battle.
I think the Bidwell family should give it up.
Neither the Bidwells nor the NFL have any plans to re-examine the 1925 championship.
Yep.
And Pottsville residents claim this decision haunts a franchise that, despite shifting cities, can't seem to escape misfortune.
The team is
Because the
cursed.
Cardinals stole our championship, they'll always have a curse upon them. When our championship is returned to us, we'll consider lifting the curse.
Maybe that's what the Cardinals need to do. And I'm asking for it because it's not just affecting the Cardinals. The curse is affecting the NFC West as a whole. It affects the Seahawks team. 49ers fans hate that team for the same reason. And so do the Rams. Terrible things happen when we play the Cardinals. And there's no explanation for it. The joke is that, yeah, the stadium that rolls the grass out, they must roll it on top of an Indian burial ground. And that's why it's cursed. No, they're cursed because of this. And it's washing over to the rest of our division. And enough is enough.
It's inexplicable in a league that basically legislates parity that the Cardinals could be so bad for so long.
I was getting calls from Arizona. Please stop this curse. I said, no way until that title is given back to Pottsville.
I don't know about curses, but I do know that I'm not alone among Maroon supporters when I say that we hope that this is the closest the Cardinal organization gets to the Super Bowl, hosting one.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Shout out to HBO Sports for providing that. And then once again, I have the link for that video down below. Please like the video if you have the opportunity to give the original poster some love. Heritage is really important. Where your team comes from, the fans around, how your team performs, is based a lot on where they are, who's in the building, who's outside the building, who's in the locker next to them. And I don't think Pete Carroll puts guys in the building to coach our players with the right heritage. Sure, they might have played football. They might have good football minds. But do they have grit? Kid pushing coal at, and then at 11, gritty as fuck. Farmers, gritty as fuck. That's the roots of that team. It was stolen from them. And the team that stole it was a team that got beat. And since then, because they have really a root of trash and move over here, move over there, and being insecure and being unethical, their teams play soft because they are soft. But they always copycat somebody else. Arizona Cardinals don't have a single idea in their entire system. Their best hit was bringing in Kurt Warner from the Canadian Football League. Was it the Arena League? I think it was the Canadian Football League where he came from. They had to bring in... They always have to bring in someone else because they don't have their own heritage. Last week we got beat by the Steeler way, which has been the Steeler way since the 70s, or at least the 80s. And then we talk about the Raider way, which whenever they get back to the Raider way, they start beating the shit out of teams. The Packers are always the Packers. The Cowboys always are the Cowboys. The 49ers are always the 49ers with their West Coast system and their great defense. What's the Seahawk way? Well, we've always had really good tacklers. All the way since the very beginning. Good tacklers, and we've had receivers with good hands. Maybe not the most athletic receivers. DK Metcalf would be that guy. But overall, throughout our history, we got guys that just are really good at catching the ball. We got guys on the offensive line through multiple eras. They're just really good at blocking and being physical. And so we need to go back to our heritage of tackling and hitting hard. And what was it about the Seattle area? Well, we had the Tacoma Dome, and they were practicing up in Bellingham, the Seahawks were, which is where I'm at, before they finally moved to Redmond, or was it Kirkland? I don't remember. They moved around a little bit. But it was this franchise that people said was basically in Alaska, out in the middle of nowhere. No one would talk about us. And so we wanted to make sure that when a team came to Seattle, they felt us. And Kenny Easley would thump you. Brown would pick you off. Every time that a team would play us, we were physical. We might not be the best coached team. That was always a problem with us. We might not have the best owners. That was a problem with us. But you know what? We always had like this chip on our shoulder that we're going to come downhill and we're going to hit you with our linebackers and our safeties, and we're going to hit you with our running backs. And then when we have the ball coming at us, we're going to catch it really well. Steve Largent, being the NFL leader in receiving until Jerry Rice surpassed him. I think he's still there. He might have moved down to 3. Crazy to think of, considering who was throwing him the ball. It doesn't need to be fancy. You just need to play good fundamental football, and you need to want it. And that Maroon team, they wanted it. They, as in not just the team on the field or the coaches in the back rooms, but the city itself and the crowds in the stadium. They were breathing championship. Then it was yanked from them. Haunting. We just had a Super Bowl that we lost 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago now. It was yanked from us at the very end. Haunting. I know it's a different set of players, except for Bobby Wagner. But the coach is the same, and the city is the same, and the franchise is the same, and the identity is the same, and the heritage is the same. So part of our heritage is that we had this Super Bowl taken from us at the 1-yard line. Where's your anger on the field? We should be one of the angriest teams on the field until we fix that. Take that to heart when you know that you're representing the Seattle Seahawks. And this fucking team that is pissed off that happened to us. We don't move on from that. Then you look at the Cardinals. They say that they've never had a championship, even though they have technically, because they stole it. It's like they steal everything. It's a pushover franchise. You have to take seriously and know we have a right to be angry. I'm going to kick your ass. It's not what's been happening. Instead, we've been playing this finesse game for too long. Ever since we've tried to be more finesse, especially moving on from Brian Schottenheimer, but ever since on defense we've tried to be more finesse because we're afraid to just knuckle up and deal with somebody trying to finesse us. We have been getting screwed. Fuck all that. I'm going to man up. Maybe not man to man, but, we're going to pull up our bootstraps. And we want to hit you harder than you want to hit us. Because we're the underdogs. We're always the underdogs. We're Seattle. Nobody knows we're here. We can win a Super Bowl and people think we're still in Alaska. They talk about maybe moving us to a different team because they don't like how far away we are. Instead of, well, maybe you should move teams closer to Seattle. When you think about that, Vancouver's right there. Anyways, I want to talk one more time about Pete Carroll. He said we have to get this game done. Have to get this game done. After he said, just watch. Pete Carroll's a little chippy too. He's a little chippy. He is a little chippy. And he knows the pain of that Super Bowl better than anyone, except for maybe Bobby Wagner and maybe like John Snyder. I doubt it. John can't really be on the field and stuff. It's different for back office people. But surely that must have been agonizing for him. It was against the Patriots. Against Bill Belichick, the guy who replaced him. Oof. This might be his second to last season in the NFL. Unless they decide to extend him. He still looks healthy-ish, Pete Carroll. But, he doesn't want to miss the playoffs. This is it. This is literally win or go home, which is what every week is supposed to be. But now it's for realsies. And his guys can't tackle. I'd be fucking pissed. Because when you look at the plays that they did call, Clint Hurtt did call good plays against the Steelers. His guys just missed. You missed 5 tackles against one runner. I can understand him beating one guy, maybe beating 2, but you missed 5? And then it was every play that they were missing tackles. And they were missing tackles against Derrick Henry. They were missing tackles against, I can't remember the halfback for the Eagles. They did good on Hurts. 49ers slaughtered us on the ground. Pollard doesn't do anything for the Cowboys, so that's fine. But, we can't play good fundamental football. We're in week 18. Dude is about to retire from the thing he loves most. And you guys can't even fucking tackle, and we're about to enter the playoffs? What the fuck? Right? I'd be pissed. Let's hear a little bit more from Pete Carroll on this presser.
It's always on this day is about back to basics and the fundamentals and doing the little things right. And so we got to capture this day and make sure it's a good one for us.
When you went
back and watched the film with the run defense, was it beyond just the tackling issues, or was that primarily it? There were some opportunities in executing better up front that we didn't get done. You know, that means you got blocked once in a while. But, you know.
And that's the thing. People will see a play and they'll see a guy get beat and be like, oh my God, what's going on? The other guy plays football too. You know, Trent Williams is going to get out there with Juszczyk and Kittle and make a great block for McCaffrey. And it's going to happen. I'm not saying, you know, stop that every single time no matter what. It's not guaranteed. They play football too. But against any running back, even a McCaffrey, yeah, he'll make one guy miss. Sure. But the entire point of game tackling is the second guy after he makes a guy miss is to be there and clean it up. There's systems in place to make up for after they make a good play during the play. So it's not just fundamentals. It's, hey, yeah, they made a good opportunity, but can you then be prepared for when they make a good play? And that's where we completely fail.
We had 5 missed tackles on one play, you know, and so that was an ugly memory in all of our minds. And we did way better in the second half than we did in the first half. So we know that it's there. So we just got to make sure we capture it early and make sure we come out of the chutes better than we have.
Is missing tackles an effort thing or a fundamental thing, or what is it?
No. To me, it's fundamentals always. It's always getting your feet in the right position, making sure your head's in the right spot, so it's out of the way, and shoulder hitting it the way we want to, and that's why I know we can do better. I know we can play better. So we happen to be going against a running back that's, I think, leading the NFL in yards after contact. So the challenge with James Conner is as big as it can get, and so we got to do a great job.
What has Arizona shown you with that run game in recent weeks? Just all the yards.
Yeah, well, it's the threat of the quarterback is always part of it. You know, he's rushed for over 200 yards in his
7 games
back. You know, so he's getting 30, 40 yards a game, something like that, and that factor does add in. You know, and so we've got to make sure and try to keep Kyler somehow in control, which is almost impossible because he's just so elusive and so fast. But we have our ways we're going to go.
There was this Raiders game, I think it was last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, where the Cardinals were in Las Vegas, and they were losing like 18, right? And then he makes this crazy comeback. But on like the last play of the game, or one of the last plays of the game, he ends up running around for like 22 seconds, scrambling around until he finally gets a first down or a touchdown running the ball. It was so weird.
Go about it in the plan and got to see if we can keep him under control. And obviously we got to execute really well in the running game because James is going to get the ball a bunch in this one too.
When it comes to Kyler, you didn't see him in the first matchup this season. Does he look the way that you would expect after that year of recovery?
Yeah, he looks really good. It's interesting how close the numbers are between when Dobbs was playing and when Kyler's playing. They're getting, they've got 3 wins in the last 7, so that's a little bit different. But their numbers are very similar, and the attack hasn't changed. It's just the style of the athlete, and there's nobody like Kyler. He's an unusually unique player with his speed and his quickness and his style, and he poses a ton of problems.
Okay, I want to show you one of these problems that he poses. And I don't think I'll get in trouble for this. It's quick. It was a year ago. That's a loud commercial.
He is their best weapon.
Okay, look at this
Murray
nonsense.
gonna throw it. This side of the field, it is caught by Marquise Brown. Between 2 defenders, a flag comes out.
Keep going for one really doesn't do anything for you.
All right, here it is.
Murray.
Okay, just what?
Running out of time, on the move, coming back this way.
And then he goes back the other way.
Dancing and looking and directing traffic, and look at the length of this play. Murray to the 10, to the 5,
and there it is.
And he's going to convert it. That's unbelievable.
That's so goddamn funny. Every time. Every time.
Look, Kyler Murray did it.
So yeah, if we can't tackle Kyler Murray, that's that's what we have to face, is that guy. I don't think you remember or appreciate just how bizarre Kyler Murray is. And sure, the offensive line was doing a good job blocking. It was a 2-point conversion, so the defensive backs were all backed up, but he still is like making guys miss, keeping his eyes downfield, and then using his feet to move the defense to the visible right side so that he then can run and then get in all the way to the other side. Just so fucking funny to watch. So he has that, which is the longest 2-point conversion ever. He also has the shortest pick 6 ever. I think he threw a pick 6 on the 1-yard line. So he's just such a funny player overall. Oh, I love him so much.
The changes you say you're going to make, I don't expect you to say what the changes are, but
Thanks.
Are they new, or are they things you've gone back, you're going to go back to?
No, there's some things when you're talking about basics and fundamentals, you're going back to where we were in camp. Sometimes technique deteriorates somewhat during the season, and it looked like that kind of happened to us. We weren't as good fundamentally as we need to be, and it showed up. We've got a lot of young guys. I know we can keep working fundamentally.
What did he say there?
Going back to where we were in camp.
Right after
sometimes,
this.
Technique deteriorates somewhat during the season, and it looked like that kind of happened to us.
Technique deteriorates during the season. We talked about this earlier with Sean McVay. Your technique starts poor. Your technique always starts poor at the beginning of the season, Pete. They're missing tackles left and right. Then during the middle of the season, it gets pretty good, and then it falls apart again. So is that you're like, yeah, I think we got it now that it's the middle of the season, and then you start focusing on other things, and then technique falls off again? How do you miss technique against tackling the week coming off of Derrick Henry? First, you got to focus on technique preparing for Derrick Henry, which surely was on their mind. And then after that week, after what he did to them, surely it was on their mind, well, we're going up against this good Steelers running attack, and we just got ran over. We should focus on our technique again. And they didn't?
We weren't as good fundamentally as we need to be, and it showed up. We've got a lot of young guys. I know I can keep working with these guys and keep helping them see how they can do things. Because like we did them right in the second half, so we can do them right in the first half.
We got a lot of young guys. Pretty sure Reed is like 30-ish. Williams is getting there. Jones is, like 28, maybe 31 or something, somewhere in that range. I don't remember exactly. Sure, Maffei's young. Bobby ain't young. Bush is in his 5th year. So sure. Diggs ain't young. So maybe he's referring to like a couple young guys, but there's always going to be young guys out there. The like half of your starters are in their 30s, Pete. It doesn't make sense.
So we need to recapture that.
In playing good run defense, the technique, how much does the discipline of each player, I think you've mentioned this, as part of it, so that the people in the back can trust that and continue to...
It's a really good point. And it's playing defense in the running game is really about relative spacing, and that's...
Relative spacing. I talk about this all the time. This is about the spear and the tip of the spear.
It's making sure the guys stay in the right gaps and they stay on the right edge of the blocks, and that's part of it is the discipline of the technique of it, and then you got to be physical enough to maintain, otherwise you get knocked off the ball or knocked out of your way. But it is about staying connected to the guy next to you, and that's something that we just need to continue to stay with it, and we got to find it, and we got to find it this week and make sure that we have a lot better outing than we did.
We got to find it this week. You haven't found it all year.
6, I think it was 6. Yeah. Yeah, they hit 2 big corner routes on us, 14 and then there was a big crossing route in the game. Those were really the 3 big plays I thought that were the impact plays that really changed the field position, and that's what we had eliminated the 2 weeks prior to that. I think we had 3 combined in those 2 previous games. So those plays changed the field position. So when you run the football now, you can stay with it, so they were fundamental stuff. The one great catch that Pickens makes, that's just a phenomenal play. But the other corner route is one that we could play in the crosser. We certainly have our ways to play that one too. So they had run the ball pretty well, and a couple play passes got us. And that doesn't need to connect, but it did in this instance.
Doesn't need to connect, but it does. Which is interesting that he said that, because typically the argument, that's the last Pete Carroll clip. Typically the argument is if you run the football, it brings the linebackers down, and then it allows for explosives in the passing game. And so he mentioned the corner route. You run forward, and then you run to the corner toward the sideline. And then we got beat there. And when you run the ball, it drops the underneath coverage there and opens up a nice space opportunity for the tight end or the slot, which is what happened, because our linebackers and then our slot would drop underneath to try to stop the run, and then the safety or the flanker would try to come in, and then he would just get out leveraged. That's what the corner route is for, is leverage. Crossing route, it's the same type of thing. You're running across, and then you get this big leverage opportunity and spot opportunity eventually along the length of the crossing route. So if you have your underneath buzz coverage or cloud coverage instead crashing down to try to stop a run because they think it's a run, but really Mason Rudolph has the ball, it's going to be a pass. So it's interesting that he said they're not necessarily related. And I do agree to a point, because you can have your safeties, and this is part of the Vic Fangio system. You have so many safeties out there. If you have 2 safeties out there instead of 1, this is what you can do, is while everyone up front is crashing to stop the run, I am aware that we don't have enough bodies in the back, so I have to watch the crosser and I have to watch the corner and break on it. So Love and Diggs had a bad day. Could be his argument there, is that it didn't necessarily have to be that way, because they have checks and balances of, if we crash to stop the run, then the DBs know, hey, we're not going to have enough space on the field to stop this pass play if it's actually play action. So you need to actually save our ass, hence safety. So you crash with your front 7, and then you have your safeties pedal, watch the quarterback, and then break on the direction of the ball. So they were out of position, and as we saw, Julian Love did get out of position on, I believe it was a corner route, or maybe it was the crosser. It was the one where he had to hand off and then go up, right? When he was down in the robber or the hook position, Julian Love. So yeah, good fundamental football. They just need to play better at safety, is what I gather from that take. We need to tackle better. Yeah, Diggs wasn't tackling anybody. Julian Love also might have been having trouble tackling. He was getting beat in the passing game, that's for sure. And then when you look at our defensive front, they weren't setting up good blocks. So if he changes that type of front, then they might have good passing lanes for good rushing lanes for Bobby Wagner, who continues to be one of the best tacklers in the league. So that is all of my thoughts for today. Turnover Thursday is, of course, tomorrow, and I'm going to go over Kyler Murray's hot spots, because he's turned over the ball quite a bit this year in his few starts, and I'm going to see how many fumbles they've lost and blah, 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 blah. As far as looking at Buda Baker, everyone loves Buda Baker. Please like and subscribe to First Kick Seahawks. I appreciate you being here, and may you all be well.